Welcome back to Behind the Ballot, where politics meets real life. We break down state and federal issues, showing how policy shapes everyday Americans. Engaged, balanced, and informative. That's our promise. And I'm your host, Mikkel Jenkins.
And this is Muhammad Alec also chiming in Macau. We had the big Chinese USA summit. We got a few things going on today to talk about.
Yes, a few things to talk about since we last met. There have been a lot of developments, especially on the international side.
Yeah.
As Mohammed noted, the US China summit has been taking place the last few days. And as well, we're going to be adding in some highlights regarding the US Iran conflict, as well as on the domestic side with some legislative bill fights, as well as redistricting wars. And then we have a little bit of a new section I kind of wanted to introduce here. Mostly just miscellaneous topics that I feel like our listeners would benefit from hearing, whether it's legislative, anything that has to do with the economy or anything global. It's just articles that I've read that I feel like our listeners should have a perspective on realistically. But let's get started with the US China summit and how that is going to tie to the Iran conflict. So, the first president since Nixon, President Trump just wrapped up a huge high stakes 48-hour summit in Beijing with Chinese President Xi Jinping, traveling with more than 15 CEOs, which from all those 15 CEOs, Elon Musk was actually the one getting all of the camera shots. I don't know if you saw
I
that,
mean, it makes sense.
Muhammad.
He is the world's richest man, technically, on paper.
Yeah, he was getting a lot of the camera shots, making like those little goofy faces that he makes so casually when he's taking these photos, which is great. It's his personality, and it's just funny to see that he was like the spotlight and all of that. But
I
yes, it was
imagine he's a
15
pretty big
T. Yeah.
name over there as well because he had a lot of attempts at breaking into the Chinese EV market unsuccessfully, I might add.
Yes, 100%. And actually, during one of the dinners that they had, they were actually for these 15 CEOs that were there. China actually brought in their counterparts who would sit next to them
Uh,
during this dinner. So that was something that did take place. So I wish I was a fly on the wall during all of that. But the agenda overall covered trade, technology, Taiwan, artificial intelligence, rare earths, and critically the ongoing U.S. war. According to Trump's post-summit readout, tariffs were never even brought up in talks, and he emphasized that they were not discussed.
I mean, there.
On time,
What at this point? What is there to discuss? China never had
yeah,
tariffs on it because he kept repealing them, and then he can't put tariffs on them anymore. There is really nothing to
yeah,
discuss
exactly.
about tariffs.
Yeah, no, tariffs is kind of a null and mute point when it comes to the Chinese economy. Realistically, like yes, there were a few, but it's like they're not really shaken by all of that. So I can understand why it really wasn't a subject that was heavily talked on. But then
Yeah.
on Taiwan, Trump said he made no commitment either way, and basically was stating that he doesn't want to have a fight that's 99,000 miles away, and want to send resources over in that way, trying to keep strategic ambiguity intact, because it was stated that Chinese officials were stating that it would be a huge mistake for the United States to make any moves for Taiwan, whether regards its independence. And, USA also mentioned that it would be a mistake for China to go after Taiwan as well. It was also noted that China has not yet purchased any new licensed NVIDIA H200 chips, even though the U.S. approved limits sales to select Chinese buyers under export controls. Trump indicated that he and Xi could meet as many times as four times in 2026, kind of signifying to a potential rhythm on high level engagement. And realistically, from all of this, there was the talks of the buying of 200 Boeing planes, and the purchasing of more American oil and so forth. But However, it seems like, China really just made a fool out of Donald Trump, out of this whole entire thing. I mean, just from watching it when they were sitting next to each other, um, just looking at the different kinds of chairs that they had. She had a more larger chair, while Trump had a more narrow chair, making him look smaller. And then just even looking at how Trump was greeted, he was greeted exactly how he wants to be. He loves that big flash, ceremonial welcoming
Yeah,
that gets him all riled up and happy, that makes him feel important,
yeah,
when realistically Xi and any other government officials weren't even there to meet him on the tarmac. So that's the first smack in the face, that you're not even going to be met by the president and or his officials. So it really tells you the kind of leverage that the United States had going into this meeting.
yeah.
And there
I
were
mean,
even
and the
reports.
Chinese are
Mhm.
very big on not appearances. What's the word I'm looking for? Like that treatment of hosting somebody. I mean, you've seen a lot of the time, like when they actually invited people over to the country. I mean, with the European delegation, this is a few months ago, maybe even a year ago at this point. They basically just honestly like brought them in on a bus and then just like dropped them off and they're like, all right, now walk ahead. It was like the top leaders of the EU. And then for
Yeah.
like recently with the Taiwan leader, they they gave the woman the bell and the ball, in terms of like her welcoming treatment. They really do put effort and thought into how they welcome world leaders in order to depict
Oh,
and
a
show a certain
hundred
kind of
percent.
image.
I mean, dude, she visited Obama.
Yeah,
Obama didn't go to visit Xi Jinping. It was the other way around.
yeah,
So that truly tells you once again that level of leverage. And he stated that I believe in September, Chinese president would be coming to the United States, but it's important to note that when Obama's term, that he never went over there. It was always she coming over to Obama, never the other way around. And just speaking on to the Iran angle, which dominated much of the conversation, Trump stated that Xi explicitly told him China would not provide military equipment to Iran and expressed support for a peace deal. Xi even offered to mediate tensions to help reopen the Strait of Hormuz, which has obviously been a flashpoint since the conflict has escalated. However, there is a clear contradiction here. Many sources close to the Iranian parliament speaker have informed the U.S. that it recognizes Iran's exercise for sovereignty. So basically, they're like, yeah, well, we'll go for this peace deal. We won't give them any weapons, but however, we recognize their right to exercise their sovereignty, just not over their country, but over the strait as well, which directly counters what the White House has been stating. And Xi opposed any Iranian militarization or toll system. And there's even that random, not really random, but I don't know if you saw that long tweets that Donald Trump had. Well, sorry, True Social post
yeah. Yeah,
that Donald Trump put out.
no, I haven't actually. He puts out
So
so many of them.
yeah, it was basically about how Xi Jinping basically stated to him that, basically to his face, that the US is a declining nation, basically. And he took to Twitter and basically stated that, he was more so talking about Biden and all of this stuff and the 4 years from Biden, X, Y, and Z. But realistically, he was talking about Trump and what he's been doing and how China is edging itself to be the newly formed global superpower within all of this.
I mean,
Because,
without a doubt,
yeah, like,
without a doubt.
yeah, as we stated, like, oh, I mean, Trump went to Xi, and it seems like we as the Americans are not getting anything from this deal. When you look at it, okay, like, yes, they're going to build factories within the United States, but wasn't it few years ago, Republicans were drafting bills to not have Chinese individuals buy farmland or even buy land within the United States. So it's a complete reversal because of the strength that China has when it comes to Iran. They can basically put their hands up and let this blockade continue, let everything just shape out and just continue getting their shipments out of the Strait of Hormuz because that is exactly what happens. I mean, in the last 2 days alone, more than 10 Chinese ships have successfully transitioned the strait under Iran's Persian Gulf straight auditory permit system. Mohammed,
Yeah,
take over real quick.
yeah. Damn. So what we've had been going on is actually is that, as Mikhail just mentioned, is that Iran and China have been allowing the working with and getting Chinese ships through the strait without an issue. Actually, more than 10 ships in the last 10 days have successfully transited through the strait under Iran's Persian Gulf Strait Authority permit system. Trump also revealed discussions about possibly easing U.S. sanctions on Chinese companies buying Iranian oil, actually, and he highlighted potential Chinese purchases of more U.S. soybeans, oil, LNG, and even 200 Boeing jets as a goodwill gesture. Now, the summit comes amid the fragile U.S. Iran ceasefire that Trump himself has called on life support. So, peace talks remain stalled, with Iran demanding an end to the blockade, sanctions relief, and compensation while the U.S. pushes for nuclear concessions. The Beijing meetings underscore how intertwined the China relationship is with de escalating the Iran war because China, this is a big thing. China really is a
Mhm.
major buyer of Iranian oil. I mean, it's been
Huge.
said that, I mean, they buy a lot of Iranian oil, a lot of Venezuelan oil. It's been said and thought and talked about how a lot of these moves against Iran and Venezuela have been solely to have a bargaining chip over China. Like, oh, well, we control a lot of the oil, or we have a lot of control over the oil that you're getting now. What are we, where are we going to go from here about this?
Right, and
And
they're getting their tankers through. And also, what, last week or 2 weeks ago, they basically told 5 of their tankers that were going through to just basically ignore any US sanctions as well.
yeah,
So those are, global superpower moves that you make, especially to the United States. And it seems like we're obviously letting them get away with it because we're allowing them to invest into our country. We're obviously allowing them to purchase more soybeans, which we don't even know that's going to be the case. And as well as with the 200 Boeing jets, that's not even something that's concrete either. So basically, Trump got all of these flatlined promises, which is basically the same thing that he's been giving to Americans the last year and 5 months. And he's basically trying to beat his chest to state that she was only talking badly about the 4 years under Biden, when realistically he's talking about the enormous and irreparable damage that even U.S. analysts, economic analysts, even state is almost irreparable damage that he has done within just his short term within his second term.
it'll be interesting
So
to
it's
see, man. Stuff has been interesting to say the
I
least.
mean, when we get to the legislative part, it's like if they're trying to sell the E15 ethanol year round, that's being contentious. Like, and the housing bill is being contentious. Like, all of these different pieces of legislation, pieces of legislation are becoming very contentious, and the Senate is able to get it done on their job. It's really the House side of it that is stalling a lot. But we're gonna dive into that now. But wrapping up just that global section, really. Um, I mean, I would not doubt. Obviously, there's going to be escalated strikes over this weekend. I could see it happening with U.S. and Israel are having some formal talks of this level of escalation, looking at hitting more Iranian energy infrastructure. So this is only going to get 10 times worse. And on the domestic side of things, once we hit there, you're truly going to start feeling this impact, especially when we get to all of that April data that was released earlier this week as well. Mohammed, I'm sure you saw all of that data information, the PPI and the CPI and the retail prices, how
I saw how it was
insanely high
the
it is. Yeah.
CPI was extremely high, and it was almost largely due to gas, and it makes me
Yeah.
laugh and be sad at the same time how much one and gas can influence that too, how much it's only influencing it because of how much it's gone up. Oh my
Yeah.
god,
And
it's
also his recent
crazy.
statement. is also his recent statement, which is a great, segue into this. It's his, the reporter asked him, and I was watching this live actually. The reporter asked him, when you sit down and negotiate, when your negotiations with Iran, do you think about Americans' financial struggle? And he says, blatantly, no, I do not think about Americans, the regular Americans' financial struggle. It is, if anything, the last thing that he is thinking about. And, he's stated this, time and time again from that, governor's meeting that was supposed to not be, no recorded videos or anything, but clearly him stating that, we can't do healthcare, we can't do daycare, we can't do social services, we can only care about war. To now, he's not even thinking about Americans having to, have second, third, fourth jobs just to get by, literally just because these prices have exacerbated um, what they have been in the past. And wages are, slowly dying towards inflation, and we'll get into that as well. But it's very grim picture for the middle and lower class American within this country.
Yeah,
But
it has
first,
not been a good look at all with
yeah,
how things have been going. It's
no,
I mean, we've seen more than ever the top 10%, but there's the chart I saw in the one graphic, I should say, that over the last like 30, 40, 50 years, that the split between the purchasing power of the top 10% and the bottom 90 always had more. But for the first time ever, the top 10% now actually has more purchasing power, more money than the rest of the 90%. And they're really just they're just choking everything out and squeezing it up to the top like a toothpaste tube. You know what I mean? Like at the
literally.
expense of everything else at the bottom, they're just squeezing it all to the top. And I can't see this working out in the long term at all. Not even the long term. We're already seeing the short term effects. But I really just do think this is just going to be worse and worse going for the Republicans into the midterms and well what they do with legislation.
Yeah, I truly think, and that's why we're definitely gonna be touching on redistricting, and that's why I think that um yes, with these redistrictings taking place and Supreme Court ruling that there is going to be a lot of energization from the Democratic base just over all of these things that have been continuously happening, and all of these pieces of representation being taken away from individuals as well. I believe there was voting in Georgia today, and I forget what it specifically is for. But however, I've been following an individual who's been continuously just speaking about it on the day, and he's stating that turnouts is over 10-decade highs. So just from that, you can kind of start to piece together a puzzle that high Democratic turnouts is going to be the true key to winning the House and at least getting close to winning the Senate. If the Senate's at least a Republican by one or two votes, that's not that bad compared to them having four or five votes ahead. But as we're talking about all of this congressional activity, we're going to get it right into the piece of legislation that the House is considering and has passed. So, on the Hill, the House passed the E15 ethanol bill. There's a few episodes ago, we talked about E15 ethanol, how it's not really that the strongest and most suitable ethanol for your car. And the bill passed by a vote of 218 to 203, which would allow year round nationwide sales of the 15% ethanol gasoline blend. This is a big win for farm states and corn producers who argue it could lower pump prices by 10 to 50 cents a gallon and inject billions into agriculture. But Senate Republicans are pushing back pretty hard. Senate GOP whip John Barrasso from Wyoming is teeing off on it, warning that without extra relief, it will hurt small refineries in his state and could rise gas prices nationwide. The Senate Agricultural Chairman John Bozeman told Politico the House version is unlikely to survive unchanged in the Senate, citing concerns from small and medium sized refineries. The bill now heads to the upper chamber where it needs 60 votes and faces real hurdles. Just for our listeners, the upper chamber is always referenced to the Senate as well. So this E15 bill is very much in danger of not passing. So it's going to be interesting to see because I do understand where those farmers are coming from about their refineries and the pressures that they could receive from this bill. So it's important to look at all sides of an issue, and that's going to be tying more further into the housing piece. But Mohammed, what do you have on this?
I mean, I think it's really interesting to see how. I mean, this is really where the actual, I think, the political side of politics actually really comes out, where these specific bills that you might think are an overall might be leaning towards Republican ideology, but then because of how it specifically affects their constituents, that they might not be with the specific idea exactly, or they might want to see some adaptations and changes to it. I mean, we saw this
Hmm.
actually. It was this is back when the big beautiful bill. I believe it was the Alaskan senator who basically got a.
Susan Collins,
Yeah, I think Susan. I believe Susan Collins isn't that the main senator.
that is Lisa Murkowski. Boom.
Thank you, yeah, Lisa Murkowski. And she basically voted for the big beautiful bill only for the sole reason that Alaska was like excluded from the portion of it that would have
Hmm.
seen a lot
Yeah.
of rural hospitals lose funding and more. And
Hmm.
she was like, "Well, I don't agree with it, but Alaska's left out of it. So because I got Alaska left out of it, I'll vote for this, even if it hurts other states." And point being is that a lot of people will not vote for something that helps other states if it hurts theirs, and for good
Yeah.
reason. So it's really interesting to see. I mean, I agree with it because the moment you start changing the any kind of industry like that, uh, opening up different products with different regulations, it definitely opens the door to a lot of competitors being able to be left behind.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I'm always for protecting the small businesses and more compared to the mega corporations.
Yeah, without a doubt, and if I'm pretty sure, E15 is usually just primarily sold in the summer months. So like having that year-round sell of it, it's gonna be pretty interesting how cars operate when it comes winter and like those cold months, given that that E15 is not as strong as the regular gasoline that we were currently putting into our cars, because that sale of the E15 did officially start May 1st. This legislation otherwise is to just make it permanent year round usage as a reminder. So there is the E15 is currently out at all gasolines, but however, they are considering a bill to have it just a year round sell. And moving on, meanwhile, House GOP leaders are moving forward on an amended version of the stalled housing bill. We covered this in our last episode, planning a floor vote next week. This comes after the Senate passed a landmark affordable housing package earlier this year with strong bipartisan support, including groundbreaking restrictions on Wall Street's purchase of single family homes. It's important to note that Democrats did put up a bill like this during Biden's term, and it was effectively shot down by Republicans who did not want to vote with it. However, the new House text dramatically weakens those limits. It significantly loosens rules on institutional investors and private equity firms, allowing them to buy more homes than the Senate version permitted. The definition of a single family home now excludes manufactured housing and newly renovated properties, and a controversial mandate requiring homes built for rent to be sold to tenants within 7 years has been removed entirely, essentially letting companies hold rental properties indefinitely. Lobbying from Wall Street and housing developers appears to pretty much have paid off. And with tens of thousands spent on key lawmakers, Senate Republicans and the White House are pretty much not happy, and they really do want that Senate version to get passed. But you can see that strong lobbying in the House. You have
Yeah,
way more members in the House to target than you have the Senate, and that is that kind of lobbyist style thinking that you sometimes have to go through.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, you got to play the game.
yeah, that's how you play the game. I'm very much familiar with it, and the my profession that I work in, but yes, that is something that very much does happen. And Senate Majority Leader John Thune has said that the clearest path, obviously, is to just approve the Senate version. But House Republicans like French Hill are shrugging it off, saying this is what legislating looks like. And then obviously there is going to be another reconciliation 3.0 bill at some time. Once that bill is fully fleshed out, we will have more on that. But on the housing bill itself, interesting to see that once again, the Senate is doing their job and the House is doing absolutely nothing. They are getting lobbied extremely hard by these by these private equity firms, BlackRock, all of these individuals, getting to these House Republicans and having them strip out pieces of a housing bill that's meant for affordability when Republicans are already underwater on affordability.
Yeah.
And their top guy, Trump, called affordability a hoax.
And he also said that housing prices don't need to go down; they need to go up because the people who
Yeah,
vote for him own houses.
exactly. So it's like
Like,
what's like
what are you guys trying to say? Like, who are you guys trying to win over with these votes? The older rich people, the richer people,
literally
literally. But it makes no sense to me. Like, how can
it
somebody
just
hear what he says and then think, "Oh, this is a guy who's for the people"?
right, and it's even worse for those House Republicans, I mean, and or Democrats that have changed, their thought process on that Senate version, because it's like it truly, like, you're telling me it truly takes a lobbyist to get into your ear for you to strip out a housing legislation when you see the numbers that are out there. You see that, the median homeowner age is almost getting towards 45, 50. That prices are, triple, quadruple the amount that they have been, that individuals are getting bid and bought out by 30, 40,000 dollars more by these firms. And this is what these House Republican and or Democratic House members are willing to do, strip out and change definitions to better fit the individuals that are just lining their pockets.
Yeah.
And that is truly why, um, you know, lobbying in itself is never going to change in how it performs. But
Honestly,
the
unless there's
way
a
that
law put in place to
financing,
get money out of politics in
well,
America,
well,
which will not happen.
that's what I'm saying. Like money can be taken out of politics, but lobbying can still happen now. Like you can still lobby effectively without even having to give someone money, realistically.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done it on the county college side. It obviously just depends on your issue. What the problem is that what comes to the campaign part of it, because if they aren't even elected in the first place, then you won't even have to worry about lobbying, trying to give them money or anything to begin with. So just making elections just publicly funded automatically cuts off all heads of the Hydra. Because at that point, if you have an individual that's campaigning and it's taking all these, secret, donations that's find out when it's a publicly funded campaign, while the other opponent is taking a publicly funded campaign, you truly start to see and voters will see where their hearts lie. And it's unfortunate that in times, obviously, incumbents have the most name recognition, so they are, reelected hand over fist. But I do see a new change happening with my generation, younger generation, standing up and beating individuals that have been in power for so long. I mean, even in New Jersey, a 24-year-old beat a two-term mayor
Yeah.
up in I forget, I think I want to say Bellevue. I want to say
So there's a
Bellevue,
lot of
New
young people
Jersey.
run for politics. I mean, there was the one I'm forgetting what race was Cat running for. Basically, I mean, it was like there's a few. There's been a few
Oh,
multiple.
she wasn't she Palestinian?
I'm blanking, but I remember.
I
I'm just
forget.
thinking about like people under the age of 30 who are running for politics.
Yeah, and I mean today I was at a college graduation for the Camden County Community College, and I actually, funny enough, was sitting next to someone who graduated with good old DJT.
Really?
from Penn. Yeah. So we had some very good conversation, and she was basically stating that he was, a horrible student. And I was telling her about my background, what I do for the organization, and so forth. And she was like, "You gotta have like I'm sure you have interest in running for office." I was like, "Yeah, of course I do." And she was like, "That's the most important thing, that our younger generation needs to be able to right the wrongs that her generation thought that they were doing right." And I gotta say, that's actually the first time I've heard that in person. And that actually kind of took me away a little bit, to see that someone from that generation is truly able to understand and sympathize in the fact how much that their generation has actually messed up
Damage of
and have
yeah.
paved the way for all of these bad things to happen. Because
Yeah.
most of the times they're just like, "Yep, whatever, pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. If you don't learn how to make them," it's like seeing and hearing someone actually own it, in a sense, that their generation has been the one that has caused a lot of these problems, in a sense. It's really refreshing. um Realistically, it's very, very, very refreshing.
Yeah.
But not diving too far off, still on the legislative front, two other items are in serious jeopardy. Of course, funding for this stupid East Wing, and the ballroom security upgrades. And mind you, no one's talked about this assassination ever since it happened, by the way.
Yeah, honestly, it was
It's
they
been
just
dropped
completely swept it
completely.
on the rug. It was like it got like hyped up, and then they're like, "All right, this wasn't what we are expecting to happen publicity wise, so let's just shove this under the rug," and then
Yeah,
everything
I was
went
just gonna
exciting.
say it didn't get the reaction that they wanted. So they're like, "All right, we're just gonna just skirt this story to the side."
Yeah,
But yes, for the East Wing and the ballroom security upgrades, and the proposed suspension of the 18.4 cent federal gas tax, senators and aides believe the parliamentarian could strip out the ballroom funding under the Byrd rule, even if it does survive. Senator Chuck Grassley has warned that they may need changes to secure 50 votes, and passage in the House is not a sure thing. On the gas tax holiday, conservatives and Democrats alike dislike the deficit impact, which, glad to see that Republicans are starting to take
actual
some
care. Yeah,
worrying to the
right,
deficit.
right. Seems like something they
uh,
only care about when there's a Democrat in office.
Literally. Senator James Lankford says he doesn't see momentum right now. And separately, the Crypto Clarity Act has advanced the full Senate, which could bring some regulatory relief to the industry. So there could be some major booms and some major advances coming on the crypto front with this bill finally passing. Well, at least getting through the first hurdle of the Senate. I believe it's just the committee. So it has to get through now the full Senate, and then go to the House committee, and then the full House, and then depending upon if there's any changes, to the president. But with all of these legislative intertwining paths all leading forward, definitely be sure to catch up with Behind the Ballot for the latest updates, because next week there will be some momentum on a lot of these pieces of legislation. And Mohammed, do you have anything before we move on to the electoral field, redistricting wars, and the Democratic counter moves?
No, I mean it'll be interesting to see what in the next few months the Republicans get done, because I mean it's very likely that once midterms hit, they're not going to be really having the power to really shoehorn, or not even they can't really shoehorn anything. They don't have they barely have a majority now, but
Yeah,
they'll
pretty
lose the
much.
ability to get through things with that 50 with the one vote over needed requirement. So we'll I feel like they'll be trying to I think we'll really see the discrepancy between the Senate and the House over the next few months, and I think we'll really see that the Republicans try to clean up a mess and make it messier in the process. You know what I mean? Like when you're trying to fix the issue and you end up making the issue even worse.
Yeah, like attacking Iran and high gas prices
You
everywhere
need like
like that,
tariffs
right?
to help our economy, and then putting
Like, let's
tariffs.
put tariffs on beef, and then a year, and 5 months later, we just get rid of them because beef is up like 600%.
Let's
Like
put
we even literally went to the store the other day, and we were like, "Holy crap!"
Yeah.
Like this is getting out of hand, literally. Like it, moving on, moving on. The electoral
It's all
field.
about that
So
chicken.
yeah, and there was actually a report that more Americans are moving from beef to chicken, from chicken to canned tuna,
To
just because
canned
of how.
tuna.
Yes, I think Costco was the one that reported that. Yeah,
Really?
that's how bad it's getting. Yeah,
That's
like chicken
interesting.
is like pretty inexpensive, like in my opinion at least. Like
Definitely.
I usually like getting chicken thighs mostly. So those we usually get about like at Walmart, let's say like maybe like between 8 to like 10 for about like 10-11 dollars, which is not bad honestly.
Yeah.
So that's like more in like the reasonable range, where beef is a little bit obviously higher than that. And obviously canned tuna is nickels compared to what that chicken price is.
Yeah.
But yes, to redistricting battles. They are heating up ahead of the 2026 midterms. Republicans have scored recent wins and pushing aggressive map changes in states like South Carolina, Alabama, and Tennessee, where Democrats protested and were punished after floor demonstrations. The Cook Political Report is tracking these mid-decade redraws closely. Democrats are responding with their own strategy. Maryland, where our good friend Muhammad is from, is considering revisiting its maps to potentially dismantle the state's lone Republican-leaning district held by Rep. Andy Harris. In New Jersey, where I'm from, the Senate president says redistricting is now on the table as red states redraw lines. So this is another just snapshot as really to what's been going on after that Supreme Court ruling. And, we've seen in Louisiana and Tennessee that states have aggressively moved to disband their African American and Black legislators. And it's really disheartening to see that our ancestors have fought with their blood, sweat, and tears for this Voting Rights Act, and to see it just so callously shot down, and for Republicans to so swiftly move against it truly shows that that hate ever since the post Civil War and leading to the Reconstruction and Jim Crow era never truly went away. Realistically, it never truly went away. It was always there. Just see how fast they acted on it, not even taking votes from the public, which is what the Democrats did. But yet the courts deem those votes and those referendums unconstitutional, which is a sad sight to see. But as we were speaking to, it's going to be up to Democratic turnout in all of these states by 10, 100, 1,000 fold to be able to surmount whatever effort the Republicans are doing. And as we're saying, all of these strategies are starting to take fold, and individuals are now seeing that they should not be on the sidelines during this. I remember Governor Westmore was stating, they were looking at it but may not do it, but now he's all for it. Same thing with us in New Jersey. There was a moment where Phil Murphy, Mikey Sherrill were not on the cusp of wanting to do this, but now it seems like we are 100% on that board. And in New Jersey, we would just be dwindled down to just one Republican seat here. So, from all of this, Vice President Kamala Harris has also outlined a expanded playbook that expands on what Hakeem Jeffries is also looking at, but it includes discussing the Electoral College, expanding the Supreme Court. Love you. Expanding the Supreme Court, establishing new ethics rules for justices, including penalties for lying to the Senate, and pushing multi-member districts and advocating statehood for Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. Now, I know if any Republicans are hearing this, their spines are crawling up their back and their tinfoil hats are getting on with all the conspiracy theories. But this is what is unfortunately is going to be the extremist moves that match those extremist moves that the Republicans have taken through the guise of constitutional and court legal battle wins from the way that our Supreme Court is fundamentally stacked. If we've had, if let's just say Merrick Garland was to be on that court, we would not, I doubt that the Voting Rights Act Section 2 would be stripped away. I doubt that Roe v. Wade would have been struck down. But yet again, here we are because we've had Republicans obstruct what Democrats have tried to do by not playing by the rules. Like Mitch McConnell stopped Obama, what, 9 months before his term ended to replace a judge after what, Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. It's just insane to see at first that Democrats were not playing fair. Well, sorry, we're playing nice, and Republicans have just been ripping up the rules ever since. And someone made a great analogy to Star Wars with this, which I love. And it's that, George Lucas kind of in some ways predicted how this was all going to happen. You have the Democrats who are the Jedi, arrogant, complicit within their ways, which as Democrats currently are, and you have the Sith, the separatists, which represents the Republicans, individuals that are in mass, individuals that are in it for the passion, in it for the aggressive side of things, and they do it silently in strategic methods and motions, and that's exactly what's been playing out, and we are seeing just as Xi Jinping has, stated to our president's face, the declining of a nation, unfortunately. But Muhammad, what do you have on those two things before we get to the last piece of the electoral snapshot, looking at the administration's authorization for voter rolls from states? Did I lose Muhammad? Might have lost Muhammad, so I'm going to continue on. So on the voting front, the Trump DOJ has greenlight authorization for the administration to obtain voter rolls from states, citing its own legal memo. This move is already facing lawsuits and resistance from election officials in multiple states who see it as an overreach into state authority and a potential privacy invasion. At least some Republican-led states have complied, but the legal fights are ongoing. It could shape how voter data is handled heading into the midterms. And it's important to note that before they were using the immigration raids as a way to get that voter data. But it now seems that they are now pushing, just now the DOJ has greenlight this authorization. So it'll be interesting to see what states do ultimately comply. Now we're going to be moving on to the economy and looking at April inflation data and supply warnings. And on April's economic numbers, they paint a picture of persistent inflation pressures, largely driven by the Iran conflict's impact on energy. The consumer price index rose 3.8% year over year, up from 3.3% in March, with energy costs surging 17.9%, and which is a direct result of disrupted oil flows from the Strait of Hormuz. Core CPI, which is excluding food and energy, was up 2.8%. The producer price index jumped a hot 1.4% month over month, well above the 0.5% forecast. It is now up on 6% year over year, which is the fastest monthly gain since 2022. On the retail sides,
The inflation these last few years has just been insane. Oh my god! I want to put. I believe that in the last 5 years we've had as much inflation as the 20 years before it. I believe
yeah,
that's how it works because of all the money printing, the current everything. It's largely due to the money printing and stimulus during
yeah,
COVID. but it's just been a mess. Like literally the last, I mean, it makes sense. The last 5 years, we've printed out a quarter of the U.S. dollar has been printed in the last 5 years. It's insane.
Pretty much.
It's insane.
Pretty much. Yeah, it is very insane. I think this is like the first time in 3 years again that inflation is overtaking bonuses and wages
Yeah,
for this month. So it's absolutely insane. Retail sales still managed a minus 0.5 percent month to month increase to 757 billion, matching expectation, thanks in part to a 2.8% spike in gasoline sales. Consumers are showing some resilience in categories like groceries and online retail, but higher energy prices are clearly squeezing other spending like furniture and clothing. Economists, well,
man,
I
it's
get furniture and clothing
energy.
because I can tell you I have not really been buying clothing, and with furniture that adds into the whole housing crisis as well.
Yeah,
People aren't moving, people aren't buying furniture, people aren't buying new clothes, things of that nature. Like, yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. No,
But economic.
that as well has just been hitting all time highs. Let me. I actually
Yeah,
wanted to check.
yeah, all-time highs. And economists warn that sustained inflation from the war and any lingering tariff effect could erode real spending power, which is exactly what we're truly seeing firsthand, unfortunately. And
U.S.
yeah,
household debt has reached $18.8 trillion, with 13 trillion being for mortgages, about 1.6 being
wow,
for student loans. So that means 4.2 trillion in debt, which is credit card debt and auto loan debt. Credit card debt
yeah,
has skyrocketed due to inflation, higher living costs, with balances above $1 trillion nationally. So more than a
yep,
trillion in credit card debt. And it's
yeah,
just
it's insane.
and then it's like that's not an issue. It's not an issue. Let's just a 25% interest rate, so let's just keep it up. 27.5% APR, just keep it up. It,
Yeah, I mean, people have
it's
been saying that
ridiculous.
they think that this new guy that comes in is going to immediately just start cutting interest rates, and that's going to make everything 10 times worse.
I
He's gonna,
mean,
it's like he's gonna cut it way too quick than it actually should be cut down. But we shall see. That is just speculation, of course.
yeah.
But we shall see. What's your insights on that? 'Cause I know you're more of an economic person.
I mean, the issue is a lot of these banks have their credit leverage, credit arms that have high interest because then it allows them to allow more people to use their credit because then they can claim more money and profit and revenue. And it's a lot. It's a really complicated model for like where they decide to draw the line.
Hmm.
But I do see the argument that if they were to too strongly cut the interest, like I think it was Jamie Dimon, J.P. Morgan CEO, who
Okay.
said
Yeah.
that if you were to cut interest rates to 10%, that they would not be able to afford to lend money because a lot of their profit comes from the higher interest rates that people use, and then just let the interest stack up and pile up.
Yeah.
And I mean, my question is clearly $1 trillion in credit card debt and growing. Clearly, interest rates are higher than what they were years ago for credit card debt. Then this isn't in line. This is. I'll agree and go with the logic of if you cut it too severely, it changes over our core business model. But at the same time, what a lot of Americans are witnessing really is that the core business model involves slowly and surely pricing out the American people as much as what's going on for possible to be possible. I mean, even right now, what we're seeing in the energy market is exactly that. The data centers are buying up all the energy, and we're going to be left on the short end of the stick, having to buy all that expensive energy now for the same amount for twice the cost. And then we're going to be looking at that, in my opinion, as well, with everything where it's just very preferential to what the business executives want. I mean, if we see a president come in and really actually kneecap credit card rates, I think they'd be very popular. I do think it would deal some economic damage. But if your business model is set up to, mm, if your business model is set up in a way that it preys on people's financial responsibility,
Hmm.
they we shouldn't have a multi-trillion-dollar industry in
Yeah.
in the country that relies on. I
I
shouldn't say
can.
multi-trillion because it's not
I
like trillion are
completely
coming and
agree.
going yearly. But we shouldn't have
Yeah.
an industry that has more than $1 trillion in debt and then be like, oh, clearly there's nothing wrong here. Clearly this is something right.
Exactly. That's and I completely agree with that because that's almost like you can say that literally same exact argument about when it comes to healthcare because we don't really have a strong like preventive care. We're always after the fact something has happened. And I think that's those two things are very much what need to change within America. And then adding to all of these supply chain supply and concerns and all of these high rates that we're constantly seeing. Exxon and Toyota have issued warnings about impeding lubricant and motor oil shortage, which could hit vehicle maintenance and manufacturing hard. So everyone just don't run too fast to get your oil. But yes, there have been bulletins posted about this lubricant and motor oil shortage that is going to be going on. So just be prepared and look out for that. And as well, I already stated, but Moody's chief economist also weighed in on Trump's tariffs policies and cautioned that they could further damage the economy if not managed carefully.
I
And
mean,
we all know they
I,
have not been managed carefully. So I mean,
honestly, I don't really think that's too much of a surprise to anybody that
no.
has really been following along with what the tariffs have been doing. I mean, I know that it's been the fact that the when the Supreme Court passed their decision and then it came to, oh well, we have to pay back the companies because the American side of this business transaction were the ones who were paying this money. Like, so of course that when the government refunds the money, they're not refunding it to the other countries or the country companies in those other countries. No, not it's not at all like we were said and told so many times that the country is paying the tariff, the company from the other countries are paying the tariff. No, we were the companies in America, and then therefore through prices being pushed down, I mean prices cascading down, the American people were the ones paying the tariffs, and now they're going to
Wow.
get hundreds of tens of billions of dollars in refunds. And you know it's going to be like a massive class action lawsuit where it's like, well, if you have the
Oh,
receipt to
massive
prove,
class action lawsuit.
and then most people
Yeah,
aren't even going to
receipt, bank
claim it.
statement, like yeah, literally, like, we like, us as the consumer, we should be able to get, some piece of this pie, and we're just getting to, like, our miscellaneous quick hits and, gonna be, just tying up this great episode that we've been having, so I just was going on Twitter real quick and good old Trump, he just makes it easy. Trump reiterates that Americans' financial situations are less important than Iran war. He
No
says,
way.
"That's right.
No
That's a perfect
way.
statement. That's right. That's a perfect statement. I'd make it again. That's right. That's a perfect statement. I'd make it again." He does not give a fuck about you
That is
at all.
crazy. That is
At
crazy.
all. No matter who you are, unless you're lining his pockets and giving him a gift. That is about it. That is all he cares about.
Yeah.
And if you're flattering him, he likes that too. That's about it.
Literally.
Literally.
Literally. No,
Literally. Once you
seriously. Yeah.
start
The only
standing up
way to
to
get
him,
around him is to flatter him up, fluff him up a bit. And he's like, oh, I like this guy. I like this guy
yeah.
outside. I
Once
mean,
you
why do
start
you.
standing up to him, he just goes haywire. Like I think we didn't cover this, but Marjorie Taylor Greene stated that the president texted her. He hoped that her son dies in Iran for her coming out against him about Epstein.
That's
Like
crazy.
what?
That's crazy.
Like, are you serious?
Yeah.
If Obama texted that to like, let's just say
Anybody.
after like
Anybody.
anybody, literally the man wore a tan suit and they wanted to crucify him.
Yeah.
I mean,
How did it's
the
just
standards have dropped so much from the Obama era of campaigning
and the
and
thing is
debates.
the moment in my opinion it's someone else aside from Trump. It could even be like another Republican. Honestly, it could even be another Republican in the future. It'll be so much different when people like the smallest thing someone happens, people are like, oh my god, because it's like people will especially the media because they realize it's such a common thing for him to act this way. They're like, oh well, what are we gonna do? And because they clearly see how he doesn't care how that what the media thinks or says. I mean, he does at this, but he's going to keep doing what he wants to do in terms of being egregious. A lot of the other time, the media is almost used as a way of like bullying politicians, you know. But I mean,
That's
well,
why we
it's
got Team Z, man. Team Z's got to be doing their work.
yeah. I know.
They got to be
It'll
doing
be
their work.
interesting to see how everything happens.
Yeah, because they've been Congress has been out with sessions and stuff, so it's like probably pretty hard to like nail them down.
Yeah.
But yeah, just interesting to say that if you voted for Donald Trump, he does not think about your economic situation, and nor does he care about it at all.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't care. He doesn't
Mm-hmm.
care, and you voted for that. And I feel bad that this is unfortunately the path and the words that he has to say, given the current economic situation that we are in. But now over to the miscellaneous quick hits. So, in other news, reports resurfaced that President Trump has privately referred to former ally Tucker Carlson in the context of political domestic terrorist concerns, as well as Nick Fuentes through fact checks and still sorting the full context. But that is seeming like the overall premise of what's going on here, that Donald Trump and his counter-terrorist domestic terrorist team is looking to label both Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes as domestic terrorists. And that's just insane. Another
That
insanity
is
moment
insane.
from this Trump
That
administration. I
is
mean, they were
insane.
the some of the loudest voices outside of Charlie Kirk, rest in peace,
Rest.
over Trump.
We are all Charlie Kirk.
Like,
That
it's
would
just
never not make me
insane
laugh. I'll be like
that
40, 50 years old.
that they have given everything, and he just doesn't care.
Yeah.
And because they see that he's fully stripped away from America first. I actually have another great tweet quote from him, and this is him basically admitting war on Iran is not from America. And mind you, this is all from an interview that he had just recently on Fox News.
Yeah.
And he basically talks on it and he says, we're doing it, and this is a quote, I'm reading within quotations here. Says, we're doing it to help Israel and to help Saudi Arabia and to help Qatar and UAE and, Kuwait and other countries, Bahrain as well. But mind
Really,
you,
just
how,
really not mincing his
but
words and
mind
really
you,
being direct about what he's doing and who it's for.
right, but mind you, no mention of America in that.
Yeah.
No mention of America. But yeah, we have soldiers that have died, have been injured U.S. Military bases that have been decimated and have been silenced by our secretary in cosplay. I mean, this is just ridiculous. How on the military side this has been going on, and he just gets a quick 45, an hour reel of highlights just thinking that everything is going perfectly fine, even though his own U.S. intelligence contradicts him almost every single day, and I read it almost every single day.
Yeah, it must be
But
frustrating having to see it constantly. My one friend
yeah,
works in
it's
trade
so
law.
frustrating.
My one friend works in trade law, and she was talking to me
That's pretty
about
cool.
how when he was, before the tariff decision came from the Supreme Court, how she had to like literally like look at his true social posts and like look about how it's going to affect trade policy based based off what he
Oh
said that
gosh,
day. And I'm like, oh
that's
my god,
insane.
I would hate to have to deal with that. Like you
Yeah,
go
I
to
would
law
hate.
school, you get a good job, you're at this prestigious law firm, and it's like now I gotta monitor the president's tweets because they're dictating our trade policy right now. Like what the hell?
Literally. No, seriously, and yeah, that would drive me insane. That would drive me insane as well. And additionally, Cash Patel has been linked to discussions of a so-called payback squad, focused on political retribution. So we'll see what comes from this from PBR Patel.
PBR Patel. What does
Patel-
PBR stand for?
it's the beer.
The beer. Ah, I didn't know. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
because his whole beard thing and the whole allegations against him, I just think it's funny.
Yeah.
But I just think it's funny how they're all cosplayers at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Gabbard's probably the only one that has real credibility out of the rest of them, realistically.
Yeah.
And she's going to be out of a job by the time the midterms come, which we reported and which was reported on. But lastly, here we have this is actually probably the a very interesting piece, especially with the hantavirus going around. I don't know if you saw this, Mohammed, but there was also testimony from a CIA whistleblower before a Senate committee on alleged federal COVID-19 cover ups. And on the public side, the CDC is sorry. I'm getting to something else as well.
No, you're
But
good.
yes, the whistleblower is basically stating that Fauci covered up the origins of COVID-19. So there hasn't been any furthering from those allegations,
Where was he?
but
Was there was there information about where he was alleging they came from?
the CIA individual,
Yeah.
just backed sources that he apparently had and or looked at and was able to piece together from everything. And if it does come out that this was a cover up, Fauci should be held liable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
Democrat,
surprised
Republicans,
he
I don't
hasn't been.
care.
I mean,
Like,
I really am.
I mean, they tried in the beginning. Remember in the beginning of his term, I mean, Trump's term, they tried to go after him, but it ended up falling flat overall. So, I
Yeah.
mean, with this information, it'll be interesting to see, um, if these allegations do hold up to be true. Because imagine if this is like some Donald Trump CIA plant to try to get Fauci and try to get Fauci in jail.
That'd be pretty
You never
funny.
know. I mean,
That'd be
he
pretty
goes
funny.
to. I mean, there's lengths that like we talk about the ballroom stuff. I think it was like 1 in 4 Americans thought that the ballroom shooting was false, not a false flag, not a
Inside
cover
job
up.
s kind of deal.
Yes, yeah, it was inside job was faked or something like that, just to add more credence and more reasoning to get the ballroom.
I believe
So
it.
it's like
I
people are
definitely
starting to
believe it was a false
see
flag.
through. Yeah, they're starting to see through really the blonde veil of Donald Trump and his hair and all that's in between that and his ears.
Man, seeing that, like
But
seeing those occasional shots where like the wind's blowing against his hair and it's just like literally standing up and he's got that giant bald spot makes me like I would
look,
hate
I
to
think
have
the
to
whole
be.
makeup thing's ridiculous for me.
I
Like
would
his neck is different than his hands, his eye circles
listen.
are different than his skin. I'm like his eyebrows have
Uh,
nothing on them. They're literally his bare skin. I'm like, bro, these people put you out here like
looking
looking
like
like you
that.
just like looking like they just like put it on your face and just ripped it right off. Like that's how they do his makeup every single day. They just rip it right off.
I mean, the
Boom.
worst thing is like
Like,
if I'm an old man, if I'm a senior, I'd imagine most people if they don't feel the need or don't want to put the effort into like dolling themselves up like that. But like, I mean, the guy's the president, so he's always publicly facing. So I'm sure he feels the need to look better and like look his best. But I also feel like if he wasn't the president, he'd probably still have that fake spray tan, the hair, because he
oh,
refuses to let it
100%.
go. I feel like he'd look exactly like he does now if he wasn't president. Like,
He a
I'm like, buddy,
thousand percent would.
come on, man. Like, it's like you're 80. Like it's like it's those pictures that you see of bald men like holding on to like the last bits of hair they have, and I'm like, man, you look better bald. But sadly, I don't think I actually don't think Trump would look better bald. He just he. No,
Oh God, no.
oh my
That
god, no,
turkey
he
neck,
looks so bad.
no.
Imagine no, imagine like without the toupee and without the spray tan, how he would look. Oh my god,
That would be very funny to see how he would look like that.
natural Trump.
Yeah, I mean, he's taken, a few pages out of Biden's book. I don't know if you saw this should have been added to miscellaneous as
Oh,
well.
him
When him
falling asleep.
falling asleep and
Yeah, I
like they're
saw
like,
that. I
he's
saw that.
blinking, he's blinking. I'm like, are y'all not that naive? The man is clearly sleeping and clearly gives no F's about I think it was what menstrual women's health or menstrual health or maternity health or something like that. He don't care. He's literally falling asleep. And I saw the girl was like literally kind of looked down at him because like he's like slumped. I'm
Yeah,
like, no,
actually
like,
slumped asleep.
yeah, I'm like, not only is he asleep, but he's asleep and the world's falling apart. I'm like, at least with Sleepy Joe, we was able to go to sleep, wake up, and the world was fine when we woke up. We didn't have to look at look at Twitter every single day to find out what's going on because that's literally what I have. Like, I mean, I do it for the podcast as well, but just in my own intrigue, just to know. Like,
Yeah,
literally, I have to open up X in the morning. Like, even if it's at like 3 in the morning, I still have to look because when it was 3 in the morning before, that's when we started bombing Iran. So I'm like, at any single given hour, any explosive information can come. But that is all that I have. And that's how it's going to be a good way to conclude this podcast episode. Muhammad, what do you have?
That's all I got as well, Mikkel. It was a fun episode. I had a good time.
Definitely. And as always, and to our listeners, thank you for joining us today on Behind the Ballot, where politics meets real life, where we stay engaged, balanced, and informative, stay curious, stay critical, and stay involved. I'm Mikhail Jenkins. And until next time, keep looking beyond the headlines and behind the ballot, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page. We are currently at 50 subscribers, and we would love to get that number up as we also are approaching our 1 year mark. Actually, it's coming up. So
Only up
if we
from
can get to
here.
maybe 75, 100 by then, that would be great. But no matter how small the number or how large the number, we appreciate everyone that listens and spreads our message and perspectives on these topics. As always, thank you again.
Thank you all for chiming in and listening. We all love your support and love having you guys here. God bless you all. God bless America. And I hope you all have a